Greetings, everybody. Welcome to the Therapist Take podcast. I know I normally don't do a pre-recorded introduction to our show, but I felt like it's important to do this time because Carrie and I are talking about something called the compassionate response continuum, and we neglected to let our listening audience know that we actually have a PDF download available to you so that you can download that and see the graphic that we're talking about in this episode. We think that you'll find it much easier to follow along with the content of this episode if you have that graphic on hand. So head on over to your show notes, download that graphic, and continue listening. Thanks for being here. Hi, Carrie.
Hi, Josh.
How are you today?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Good.
Word is on the street you have a hair appointment.
That's correct. It's a very important day.
So we're trying to keep to time.
That's right.
And we're only 6 minutes behind
right.
today. I feel like that's good.
That's it's better than it has been sometimes.
The crazy thing is that everything was in place, and then hopefully the video is working correctly today, because on the screen it looked like it was delayed a little bit, but then when we tested it, it looked fine.
I know.
On the test. So I guess we'll see if our lips aren't matching with our voices, then sorry.
Then it didn't work. Yeah.
Yeah. But the good thing is, because on this episode today, we have a visual for you guys where you won't have to look at our lips.
That's
that
right.
much.
It doesn't really matter.
Do you ever think about that's weird? You really think about it, like we really don't pay attention to how much we're watching people's lips until you have that little delay and their lips aren't matching, their voices aren't matching.
And then you're totally
lips.
Distracted by that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then it makes me feel a little self-conscious that people are looking at my lips a lot.
Well, it's like anything. If you start focusing on it, then you get obsessed about it, right?
Yeah, but maybe women have figured that out. They wear lipstick, as you have today.
As I have to distract from the hair that needs to be done. Absolutely.
I could put lipstick on.
You could. I've got lots.
Lip gloss, maybe?
Yeah.
I don't know. Something. Should try it.
Whatever makes you feel better about knowing
people put makeup on when they do video stuff.
Yeah.
Men do, anyways.
Yeah.
We should break
People
these
do.
social norms. We should not be confined to our own skin.
Next episode.
Yes. Well, we better get into it today since we are a bit on a time crunch here. So, we are going to talk about a communication tool called the compassionate response continuum. So don't go anywhere. Welcome, everybody, to Therapist Take. We're going to talk about this communication tool today called the Compassionate Response Continuum. Before we get into that, I just want to remind all the viewing audience to make sure you're subscribing to our channel and ringing the bell. I'm really excited right now about this gaslighting series that I'm doing on YouTube, and so if you want to check that out amongst a lot of other videos that we've done, please head on off the live stream at some point and go check out the tutorial type videos that we've done. Right. But also, if you're listening, if you're listening to this on the audio platforms, we would appreciate if you follow us first of all, but then give us a 5-star review if you like the content we're putting out, and if you want to go the extra mile, you can even write us a little nice review in there. So there you go. So we're going to talk about this tool called the Compassionate Response Continuum, and so I'll have Hannah go ahead and put our little screen up to show you what kind of the structure of our conversation today. And it's pretty basic, actually. We're going to talk about who's it for.
Yes.
How does it work? And, basically the ins and outs of it all. And so it's going to be a little bit of different format because Carrie knows about this. We've talked about it.
We sketched some of it out when we were talking
you actually,
about these
when I was trying to get it, I had different types of graphs and stuff when I was trying to put it together, and you helped me work my thoughts out and stuff. But as far as I know to date, you don't use this with clients.
I have
don't
not.
expect you to.
Right.
So maybe one of my goals is if I do a good enough job explaining it today, you'll start using it.
Okay.
Maybe.
Okay.
We'll see.
All right. No pressure.
But I did do a YouTube video on this, one of those, a tutorial type video to in the best effort I could to explain it in a very short amount of time. And some of the feedback that I got from people is that it looked like a really interesting concept, but it still was kind of missing some things. They weren't understanding some pieces of it. So I thought a good format would be is that we'll start out by me kind of explaining what it is, and then you can kind of come in. We haven't practiced or rehearsed this or anything, and start asking questions, and you get to get points of clarification on what it is and how it works. Because I do think when people understand it, it does, at least seemingly for a lot of people I've presented this to, gives them a pretty powerful tool of intervention. In some, it doesn't. So we can see.
Sure. Well, why don't you explain kind of why it's called what it's called, and overall, like kind of in general, what's this supposed to be helping people give direction for?
Okay, great. So this was intended, I was trying to think of a communication tool for couples that are in high conflict. So as a lot of people know, people that know us or have listened to enough of these episodes, they know that you and I are betrayal trauma therapists. So we work with a lot of clients, a lot of couples who have experienced the impact of infidelity, chronic infidelity, and even the certain type of addiction. We don't like, the algorithms don't like it when we say the word. So if you actually see I spelled it SEGGS on the so I don't mess with the algorithms. But so these couples that are in high conflict, and it's not always infidelity related. You can be in high conflict and there not be infidelity.
Right.
Some of the other communication tools that we would use just aren't sufficient because they weren't doing, I felt like, an adequate job of lowering the intensity of what's happening. So, and I'm a big believer, as you know, in compassion being a major component in responding to people who are in pain. Mm-hmm. Compassion. It's a big part of it. So as I had worked with people over the years on learning to respond to people who are in pain, and when it comes to betrayal trauma, a lot of times they're responding to the person who is in pain. They're in pain largely because of something they did, right? Right. And helping them learn to do it with compassion. How do you set boundaries with compassion? Because people who have cheated their partners, often in the midst of their pain, it's very common, mm-hmm. will do something hurtful in response. Mm-hmm. And as much as the court of public opinion would be like, yeah, they're lucky they're even with them. Mm-hmm. It's true. Mm-hmm. They still are trying to build a relationship together. And so, but this also gives the partner, the one who committed the betrayal, the opportunity to show that they are a person of boundaries. Mm-hmm. And because the partner that they cheated on, they don't trust their word on it. Yeah. That you can tell me you're boundaried, but you kind of blew that out of the water when you kept the secrets and lied, right? Mm-hmm. And so they will, to prove that they're a boundaried person, they have to experience them being a boundaried person. But when the partner who committed the betrayal act, they have to learn to do it compassionately. Yeah. They can't just do it like regular folk. No. They have to be extremely compassionate. And when I say regular folk too, like we all could probably take a lesson from that as well when we're setting boundaries. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of what it was born out of. Okay. And that how it got the name Compassionate Response Continuum. Okay. So let's, so if we can go ahead and put it'll just be me for a minute. I'm going to explain this this graphic that you see on your screen. And I also I'll have one that I'll reference to here too, because I can point with my pen, but I can't point to the graphic that you see. This is the larger graphic. So the first thing that I want you to notice is that there's basically an XY continuum. So, or XY axes. So you got the alarm trespass axes, and then the perpendicular one, the one going up and down, is the compassion axis. All right. And so the first thing that you're having to decide or experience is what level of alarm. So whatever's happening in the relationship that's where you know you're entering into a potential conflict or you're having to face something, the first thing you have to decide is alarm or trespass. And if there's one thing I would want people to walk away with as like this was helpful, is that it helped them realize, like, in any given moment in time when they're triggered by something, the first thing they need to decide for themselves is alarm or trespass.
Okay.
Because if it's an alarm, the response is much different. The motive is different versus a trespass.
Okay.
So a trespass would be like crossing the line, right? Like a violation. A trespass is a boundary violation,
Okay.
right? So when there's low alarm, that's when people often find themselves, you can't see it on ours, the printer kind of cut off the word here, but on this light, the light blue side, there's a low alarm. There's not a whole lot of compassion because there's not a lot of need for compassion.
Right.
But there's still some, right? And so a lot of times we respond with reassurance. Compassionate reassurance is what I call it. Just reassuring in whatever the context is, that we are okay, you're okay, we're going to get through this, and sympathy is different from empathy. Sympathy is feeling the feelings of another person, where empathy is trying to understand the feelings of the other person, right? So it's low on sympathy. It's low on compassion. It's sympathy, not a lot of empathy there. And I'm feeling your feelings, okay, I get that this is hard, this is scary, and I'm going to offer some reassurance, okay? So as the alarm moves up, though, and it starts approaching the line, sympathy should start moving toward empathy. So you kind of have a mixture of both. Not only do I feel your feelings, I'm also really trying to understand your feelings. So I'm met with some level of curiosity. What's going on? I can see that you're hurting, that you're scared. Tell me what's going on. I'm genuinely worried about you. You can actually, if you don't want to use the word compassionate concern, you could just say worry. I'm worried, But here's the key, okay? On that side of the line, when it's alarm and not trespass, my concern is genuinely for you, for the other person. And my hope is that if I can help you, then that hopefully would be good for me. But my first drive, or my reaction is to help you. That's my motive. That's my goal.
Okay.
Once there's been a trespass, it shifts. Now I'm responding to you in a way that's good for me. And hopefully that's also good for you. So it shifts at that point. Once I've decided there's a trespass, I have to respond in a way that is with self-respect and integrity. That's where compassion also comes in, because if we're screaming and yelling at people, that often is not who we want to be. And if we look back, we're like, I don't want to be like that, then we've crossed our own lines at that point. So now empathy, there's not a lot of sympathy on this side,
Okay.
but there's a lot of empathy still.
Okay.
So whereas curiosity is a key player in compassionate concern, benefit of the doubt is a key player on compassionate discernment. But curiosity is still there to some degree, but the benefit of the doubt has to be a key player to hold you accountable to compassion. So I'm not going to assume my partner's trying to hurt me. I'm actually going to assume the opposite, even if I'm wrong. I'm going to assume that I know you're not trying to, or maybe this, I know that you're in pain. I know that you're hurting. I know that I caused it. Let's say it's a betrayal situation. I know that I'm responsible for a large part of it. But there is a boundary that we need to address, so this is for me. This is part, if you're in recovery for, if you're the unfaithful partner on betrayal, in betrayal trauma recovery, this is really important for your own recovery, is learning how to love yourself enough to do this, because I am a big believer that when people cheat, whereas to the partner, it feels like, and I would never contest this in the beginning, because it's just how it feels. They feel like, did you not love me enough to stay faithful? Or did I not love you enough to stay faithful?
Right.
And both of those aren't true. And I think you would agree with that, right,
Sure.
Carrie? The issue really becomes like, they didn't love themselves enough to stay faithful, and this is where the people really start valuing themselves enough that I can and should speak up. But I have to learn to do it compassionately, because I'm also, this is someone not only I love, but in a lot of cases they're hurting. Where our relationship is volatile, maybe to some degree. We're in high conflict right now. So I'm going to try to be as compassionate as I possibly can in these situations. And then as you kind of move down that continuum over to compassionate self-regard, you see the word self-respect kind of poking its head out there. And so what I always say to this is self-respect is interwoven through all of this. You have to think of self-respect like the director on a movie set. That they only show up when they have to, right? But they're the ones in charge. So, but we let the other players play, and self-respect shows up when they have to, when it has to. So you should be able to see and feel the fingerprints of self-respect throughout this whole continuum. But if the trespass is to such a degree that it crosses over into self-regard, and the way I say this is sympathy and empathy be damned. This is about self-respect right now. So I'm not really focused on how you feel or trying to even understand how you feel. That the line has been crossed to such a degree that I have to speak up for with self-respect. But there's still compassion in there. This is why you don't just have this major blow-up WTF moment on your partner. I think if I were to extend this continuum out, those types of responses actually would fall below the line. Like would kind of drop below that x-axis. And so, but what I think happens a lot in relationships, in these high conflictual relationships, is that most of the alarm people are experiencing are either going to fall into compassionate concern or passionate discernment. But they often will respond on the extremes with compassionate reassurance or compassionate self-regard to the extreme. Maybe even further beyond than what I have it drawn out here. And so how many times has a partner, their boundaries have been violated, and they're saying, what do I need to do to help? What do I need to, how can I, offer basically reassurance when they probably need to be responding from, when there's been a trespass, and they need to be responding from discernment. Or how many times has the unfaithful partner experienced some kind of mild alarm, and they're responding with all the way over on compassionate self-regard, like this huge violation when there really isn't a violation at all, and so that's kind of it in a nutshell. And now we'll open the floor for questions. And so if you're listening to this on the podcast, what I'm going to try to do is actually put a link and I'll try to get this uploaded to our website where you can download this continuum, so you can see what we're seeing here on this. And so
I think first, just to clarify that you're finding that you can use this tool for both the person who's been betrayed, the partner, and the acting out partner, the one who did the betrayal, right? So it can be the wounded and the one who did primarily the wounding, right? That you can find yourself and your responses in this, right?
Right. And not, I've used this with couples who are just having high conflict.
Okay,
There's
right.
not betrayal.
So, but wounds still, right?
Yeah,
In high
like
conflict.
probably like beyond or before the relationship, even traumas from that. Like
Okay.
something about, for whatever reason, has made it difficult for them to communicate about difficult things from a calmer, a less intense way,
Okay.
I guess is the best way to say it.
Okay.
It's probably a better way to say that, but that's what came out. But yes, given that most of, or the primary population we work with are betrayal trauma clients, yes, you either one can find themselves in this.
Okay.
But I would say that I'm probably working with the unfaithful partner more on this in the beginning.
Because
Because I think it's just unfair to the partner who's experienced the injury needs to focus on healing and not so much tend to the relationship while they're trying to heal.
Okay.
So you and I often talk about, in the beginning, it's not a forever thing, but that the one who's been betrayed needs to be able to lean on the other partner, but not necessarily the other way around in the
Yes.
beginning.
Yes.
And so if we started this too early with the partner who has been betrayed, I think we're going against our
Okay.
own approach there.
Yeah.
That's the way it seems anyways.
Yeah.
But if there hasn't been betrayal in the relationship, you can set the couple down right in front of you and put this down, and in the middle of and I've done this in the middle of the session, they're talking about an issue that they had, and I'll put this down and say, where was the violation? Which that's the first thing to decide.
Right. I was going to say, it seems like this
alarm
is
or trespass.
You kind of start with the x-axis,
Uh-huh.
and then
Right.
you move to the y.
Yes.
Right. And you're pointing out, it sounds like movement,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or stuckness as represented by this continuum model.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So some of the things that come up, one of the most common ones is like, let's take an example of like eye rolling. Okay. The first thing to realize is that not all alarms are created equal. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So in other words, eye rolling for me might not be a violation, but for you, it might be.
Okay.
It might be a trespass. Okay. And so that's one of the things to remember is that just because it's not a trespass for you doesn't mean it isn't for somebody else, and
Right.
they have their reasons.
Okay.
So, but one thing I talk about with things like eye rolling, even if it is a trespass, it probably isn't too far from the middle. It probably isn't going to reach the point of compassionate self-regard, which is
Okay.
often how people will respond to things like that.
Mm-hmm. I'm not going to be around someone who rolls their eyes at me.
Yeah,
That's
like,
what
how
that
dare
would look
you?
like. Right.
And when you look at it, it's like, no, okay. If it's a trespass, it's probably just on the other side. But then they'll say, well, it's like, man, they do it all the time. Mm-hmm. And that's where we got to talk about how this works when it comes to history.
Okay.
So
Good.
this continuum does make room to consider history as part of it.
Okay.
It opens the door for dialogue about history. But when you're plotting it, the first thing you got to do is remove history and decide for yourself. Now, it's not remove history to some extent, basically.
Right.
Because this gets a little ambiguous with this, because you're basically just relying on your feelings
Yes.
to determine
Yes.
how is this a trespass or not a trespass.
Mm-hmm.
And you're really taking it a slice in time, so you kind of got to like, okay, it's the 40th time that he rolled his eyes, but is just eye rolling a trespass or not a trespass for you? Yes, it's a trespass for me. Okay. Now that opens the door up for discussion about why.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where history comes in.
Okay.
Because, she might say in this situation, because I use the he and she analogy, that she might say, it doesn't bother me at all when he, scoffs, but the eye rolling bothers me because there's history with eye rolling. So scoffs might be more of an alarm and not a
versus
trespass.
crossing over. Yeah.
And that's why it's so important to identify first eye
Where's the
rolling in
violation?
general,
Right.
trespass or not a trespass, and then you get into the history of why. And as you do this, it might become not a trespass someday.
Yeah.
It might just be an alarm. But the first thing you got to do is identify that.
Well, I think that's an important thing to pay attention to, is that what we're really the point of this is to say, if you could have some kind of different response, would you then feel differently about the stimulus?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And the answer is, of course, not yes or no. It's maybe. But I think that's an important thing. It's what is going on. And the point of using this is because you're trying to decipher and discern kind of a roadmap of, this is like staying in concern and discernment, knowing, is this a discernment? Is this, excuse me, a concern? Knowing how to respond, knowing within yourself what you're searching, seeking, and needing, and also for being the partner or they're the one listening on the receiving end of, okay, like this is what the process, basically, this is what we're all working on.
Yeah. And I think another important piece is like just understanding the motive behind it too, because we're so quick to respond, and we might be responding appropriately to like, this is a trespass and I'm responding as a trespass. But one, if our partner doesn't understand why it's a trespass, that's an issue.
Sure. Okay.
And then secondly, if you 2 seconds ago you responded something else with a lot of compassion and concern, it's like, why the shift? Because trespass, when I respond with trespass, it's about me, and it's okay to be about me. I'm making it about me. So sometimes you'll hear people say, "Go ahead.
Yeah.
Why are you making it about?" Like, why are you always making it about you? Because it is about me.
It is about me. Yeah.
Right? It is about me. I'm making it about me because in this context, there's a trespass, and it's appropriate to make it about me.
Right.
When I'm on the alarm side of things, I'm not making it about. I really want it to be about you, And if I can have a part in helping you, I would, because I'm worried about you.
Okay.
To some degree.
Sure.
Right.
Concerned. Yeah.
Based on what the issue is. So.
Yeah, it's a real dynamic model.
Yeah.
Right. There's a lot of betweens and withins as you think about using this, right?
Yeah, and kind of like you said, I think if you really look at it and you understand how it works, you can see yourself at any given point in time.
Sure.
You can. I'm not saying there aren't flaws in it. I think there's still probably some things to flesh out on it, but with about any point of time where you're feeling, the urge to speak back on something, you could pause and probably find yourself on this continuum somewhere. Is this a trespass or not?
Right.
And then if I'm saying it's really not a trespass, then why do I feel like I want to respond like it is? And there's your conversation.
Yeah.
And so.
There's your curiosity.
Right.
Yeah.
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 That opens the door to really do some introspective work with your partner, to get curious about your partner's life, the way their brain works, and all the idiosyncratic things about them,
But I think the idea too that the first step is, what's the boundary violation? Where does it fall on this intensity scale? I think that's a really helpful direction for people that are feeling very overwhelmed by intense conflict, habitual conflict, or whatever, right? And so I think that's what we have to really pay attention to as a really important anchor in being able to then go to the next kind of dynamic piece of, okay, so this is where it was. So what's the next step? What am I seeking? What level of response am I really, kind of would be the thing that would scratch the itch.
Exactly. Like you're right. Like, so again, first thing we talked about, to kind of full circle here, all the way back to the beginning, there's one thing that I would hope people get out of this by listening to it for the first time, is to be able to take a step back and say alarm or trespass. Yeah. That's number one.
Sure.
And then kind of to your point, you're saying now, once I determine it, one or the other, to what degree, and that makes it's a little more ambiguous, a little more complicated. Yeah. So usually where I go with people from there is to then establish the extremes.
Yes.
Right. And it's especially
Right.
with compassionate self-regard, because so many people are responding from that
Yeah.
quadrant and beyond, when they either should be responding with concern or discernment.
Yep.
And so some of the examples I give for self-regard would be like name calling.
Okay.
Like name calling, if you call me a name, then I'm not going to have a lot of sympathy or empathy for you. I'm going to not come at you, but like I'm going to present myself from a position of self-respect, that's not okay.
Yeah.
And then, anything a lot of things beyond that, obviously, any type of physical violence, but even like violent behavior, like throwing things against a wall, breaking things, getting
slamming,
threatening
to leave. Yeah.
Yeah. What's the, toxic anger, type things.
Yeah.
But that's really for the couple to establish, really for the individual to establish first, but then to have
Again,
conversations.
another why it's dynamic, individual, within and between. Yeah.
Yeah. But then once you get the extremes established, then it's like pretty much everything else is going to fall in that middle.
Yeah.
It's a wide net.
It's a wide net. I was thinking it's probably nuanced too. Like if this is a 1 to 10 scale, the difference between a 5 and a 6.
Yeah.
Right. From the, concern zone to the discernment zone. It's only one difference, but it means you're in a different spot. You really have to work on understanding the nuance.
Yeah. So my question to you, Carrie, is did I convince you to use it with clients?
Sure.
Yet?
I'm thinking about how to break it down also into steps. Like first, let's think
great.
about this. Then let's think about that. Right.
Yeah. My plan is to write about it, and I just haven't had.
Yeah.
But that would be a good approach to writing about it, is to present, steps on how people can use it, how people can start using this without the guidance of a therapist. And I think one thing, again, the thing I'd like you to take away from it is just being able to decide, is this an alarm or trespass?
Well, I really think that there's an intuitive piece that you've picked up on just in general, especially with your ultimate message, which is whenever people are having a feeling, lean into it. Explore it. Don't minimize it. Don't push it away. Don't make it, the end all be all. Take some time. And I like the idea that that's what you're saying first. Pay attention to that, because then from there, and especially people who have done work, it doesn't have to be just in therapy, right? But they've learned their bodies. They've learned their signals. They've learned their social emotional values. They're going to be able to really understand, well, how do I know if this is alarming, slipping into trespass, significant trespass, and I'm going to need more than a sympathetic response from somebody else, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I appreciate you being cool about doing that with me today.
Yeah. I like to learn.
I know, but it's a little bit different format, and I surprised you with it today.
You did. I can roll, right?
Huh?
I can roll.
Yeah, sure. I didn't worry about it at all. I didn't, actually.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
I don't want you to.
I had compassionate concern
Thank
for
you, Josh.
how Carrie might feel about this.
Well, we do this a lot. We'll come in with ideas and we spitball and play off things all the time.
That's what I love about the podcast, is that I like it being organic, and I don't like having a lot of dialogue about the things we're going to talk about right before we talk about them. But
then goal achieved for you anyway.
For me, yeah, I don't know if everybody
don't
else
know if anybody
likes
else listening is
but,
enjoying.
I listen to us,
I
like it.
I learned something, so it's a win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did learn something about listening to us again. You want to hear it?
Yes.
We sound really good at about 1.25 time on the podcast.
Okay.
So if you feel like I'm like, man, we sound so Oklahoma sometimes, it's really me. Where I'm like, I'm really slow talking,
We probably are more because we're therapists and we talk and listen all day, right? And tempo is a big way that we tap into nervous systems. And we probably do that so often when we're still in this mode, we don't even realize it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you're like debating, like, I don't know if I like listening to them, give us one more shot at 1.25 times.
Just speed us up a little bit.
Yeah.
And then maybe they should listen to us when we're just have a normal conversation and maybe we talk faster. That's what we should observe.
Sound much faster in person.
When we're being silly. Yeah.
I'm not having to worry about my numb lip getting in the way.
Because I'll just, you can, it's okay if you stumble.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having that conversation, and I
Yeah.
appreciate everybody that has supported us and tuned in, and we really appreciate it. Again, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Facebook, and give us that 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast, as they say. We'll see you back next time.